In the far north of the old world, roving bands of deadly warriors commit their souls and hearts to chaos gods. For their supplication, they're rewarded with boons, magical protections, rune-wrought armor, and ensorcelled weapons, as well as the allegiance of monstrous creatures from the chaos wastes. The warriors of chaos are a blasted army of wanton destruction. I think it's fair to say that as we go through the Warriors of Chaos units, you're going to see that it's a melee-centric army that's very, very elite. That doesn't mean you can't build big bricks of marauders or other weird and wonderful creatures. You're going to be able to create some amazing Lord characters. Chaos Lord on Chaos Dragon, coolest unit in Old World, as well as obviously being able to bring your sorcerers to buff up what is already an elite unit profile. As we go through this video, if there are any of the units that you really like or you want to talk more about, please do leave comments below so I can read them, because that makes me very excited to do. Let's look at the army composition for a Warriors of Chaos list. For characters, you can either have one Chaos Lord or Demon Prince per army. For every 1,000 points in your army, you can have an Exalted Champion or a Sorcerer Lord, and you can have multiple Aspiring Champions and Exalted Sorcerers up to 50% of the points value of your army. Either an Exalted Champion or an Aspiring Champion can be a Battle Standard Bearer for an additional 25 points, and they can have any magic standard with no points limit. For core, you can have any number of Chaos Warrior, Chaos Marauder, Forsaken, Chaos Knights, Marauder Horsemen, and Chaos Warhounds. For special, you can have one unit of Chosen Chaos Warriors, one unit of Chosen Chaos Knights, and multiple units of Chaos Ogres, Chaos Trolls, Chaos Spawn, Chaos Chariots, and Chimeras. You can also have multiple units of Dragon Ogres, but we're going to cover those in the Beasts of Chaos review. For rare, you can have multiple Gore Beast Chariots. For every 1,000 points in your army, you can have one Hell Cannon. For every 1,000 points in your army, you can have one Chaos Giant, and you can have one Dragon Ogre Shaggoth for every unit of Dragon Ogres that's in your army. A diverse roster with some limitations, and the ability to dip into the Beasts of Chaos book is quite an exciting army that's clearly very melee focused. The only good missile unit or long range unit that you've got in this army is a Hell Cannon, and again, that's very limited in how many you can take. So if you like smashing up fools in the middle of the battlefield, then this is the army for you. Let's take a look at the Chaos Warrior special rules. The first rule we're going to look at is Chaos Armor. Units with Chaos Armor will have a ward save equal to the value next to it. This is particularly good on the Lord characters because they have Chaos Armor 5+. This means they have the built-in ward save, so you don't have to buy additional ward saves via magic items. Particularly effective if you mount a character, because then that ward save is applying to the additional wounds that may come from a mount. And as if that wasn't crazy good enough, it also means that your wizards can also be equipped with armor. Most wizards in the game are not that survivable. To have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord that's also super survivable thanks to a great armor save is wicked. The next special rule is ensorcelled weapons. This is a special rule that applies to hand weapons that most of the units in the roster carry. This makes their hand weapons have magical attacks and AP of 1. Magical attacks is really good against ethereal units, and obviously AP of 1 base on a hand weapon is awesome. Ensorcelled weapons isn't a rule that carries over to the model's mount, and if you start equipping yourself with 2 hand weapons or great weapons, it then doesn't apply to those weapons either. But as a base rule, it's great, and it means that you don't necessarily have to pay points to upgrade some of your weapons. The next special rule is a wicked little mini game that you can play with your characters. It's called Gaze of the Gods. During the command subphase of your turn, you can roll a dice for one of your characters, and you can consult the table to see what boon you've been gifted by the gods. If you roll a 1, your character becomes stupid. You suffer a -1 modifier to their leadership. If you roll this result again in later turns, then you add further -1s to your leadership characteristic. On a roll of a 2, you add +1 to your initiative value until the start of your next turn. On a roll of a 3, you add +1 to your toughness until the start of your next turn. On a roll of a 4, you add +1 to your weapon skill for the rest of the battle. On a roll of a 5, you add +1 to your attacks characteristic for the rest of the battle. And a roll of a 6, you add +1 to your strength and leadership for the rest of the battle. I'm not 100% certain that the bonuses outweigh the massive negative of rolling a 1, but there is a magic item to help you re-roll this dice if you want to, so just gamble away and buff up your characters to the, not the heavens, the hells. It's also worth mentioning later when we look at these characters that they already have an incredible stat line, so adding any of these bonuses is really going to push them into just a crazy place. The next special rule is about the marks of chaos that you can give to most of the units in the roster. This is to represent those units being dedicated to one of the dark gods. There are also some restrictions around the marks. A model can't have more than one mark of chaos. They are not the Ever-Chosen. All the models inside of a unit must have the same mark of chaos. Only a character with the undivided mark is going to be able to join units that don't have the same mark as it. So let's take a look at what the different marks of chaos do for your army. The mark of chaos undivided lets your unit reroll any fear, panic, or terror tests. While this might sound fairly underwhelming, I think you're going to be suffering a lot of terror and fear checks in this game, and they're going to be very impactful. So this might end up being better than people think. Models with the mark of Khorne are going to gain the Frenzy special rule, which obviously means they're going to get +1 attack and become immune to psychology, which is great, but also going to be fairly uncontrollable as they become murder hobos. If a unit has the mark of Nurgle, then when an enemy attacks it in the combat phase, they must re-roll successful 6s to hit that hit the unit. This is obviously going to be particularly good against special abilities like Poison. However, I would have really liked to have seen this ability applied to shooting, but maybe then it would have been too strong. Warriors of Chaos also have a fairly high weapon skill, and so many other units are going to struggle to hit it. I'm not saying they're all going to be hit on 5s and 6s, but this is particularly good on high weapon skill units who are going to be hit on 5s and 6s anyway, because now your opponent is going to have to re-roll attacks against them, making your units that much more survivable. Models with the mark of Slaanesh get +1 to their initiative in the first round of any combat. Also, if all of the models inside the unit have the mark of Slaanesh, then they automatically pass panic tests. Warriors of Chaos roster is almost 100% a melee-centric roster. You're going to be getting all of your kill points and fighting for most of the battle. So +1 initiative is probably, again, doesn't sound very fun, but might come in really clutch, especially in certain matchups. And again, being able to ignore panic is a massive bonus. Models with the mark of Tzeentch have flaming attacks and magic resistance -1. In addition, if a wizard with the mark of Tzeentch joins a unit with the mark of Tzeentch that has a unit strength of 10 or higher, then they're going to get +1 to cast on their spells. I think both of these bonuses are particularly excellent. Flaming attacks is going to be great into regen units, and also the magic resistance is going to really help, especially for that wizard that's already going to be potentially dispelling at +4 into the unit. But the casting at +1, plus other bonuses that are in the book, means you could have a particularly strong casting bunker. Even a lowly level 1 wizard with +1 to cast is great, and you might be able to stack extra pluses to cast across the army for a big wizard gunline. I think which mark you're going to take is really going to depend on your playstyle and also which units you take and what you're going for as an army composition. However, I really do like the reroll 6s from Nurgle, and I do like the Tzeentch +1 to cast. I think both of those are going to have a grand effect on your army across the course of a battle. A wizard with the Law of Chaos special rule may discard one of the spells they've generated and pick one of the spells from the spell lore as long as they have the appropriate mark. If your wizard has the mark of Chaos undivided, then they can cast the Winds of Chaos. This is a hex spell cast at 21 inches, and it's got 2 different levels. If cast on a 7, then you apply a -1 modifier to an enemy unit's move characteristic, and if cast on a 9, you apply a -2 modifier to their movement characteristic. This is a great spell for shutting down enemy movement, obviously reducing charge ranges, which is good. It lasts until the start of your next command phase, and I think it's just a great spell. If your wizard has the mark of Slaanesh, then they gain access to Acquiescence as a spell. This is a hex spell cast on 6 with a range of 12 inches, and until the end of the combat phase, the enemy unit is going to have the Strike Last effect applied to it. Again, this is brilliant for a purely melee army that the Warriors of Chaos roster definitely is, and it's particularly good against other high initiative matchups that you're going to face. However, the limited range of 12 inches means it's only going to come up in certain situations. If your wizard has the mark of Nurgle, then they gain access to the Fleshy Abundance spell. It's cast on the 7, and it's an enhancement spell. It's cast on the self, and it remains in play. And while this spell is in play, it adds +1 toughness to the caster and also the unit that they're a part of, up to a maximum of 7. High toughness is very good in an already high toughness army. It also doesn't say that it's removed if another enhancement is put on the unit. And as long as the other enhancement doesn't say that you have to remove the enhancement when 2 enhancements are cast, which some do, that means you could potentially have a bunch of buffs on a very solid unit. This unit will also be marking Nurgle, so you're already going to be rerolling 6s to hit against them in close combat, and now they've got +1 to their toughness. I think this is very good. And if your wizard has the mark of Tzeentch, then they gain access to the Blue Fire of Tzeentch spell, and this is a doozy. It's a magic missile with a casting value of 9 and a range of 18 inches. The enemy unit suffers D6 +3 strength 4 hits with an AP of 2 and flaming attacks. This is a great magic missile, and if you have a bunch of Tzeentch wizards in little castle bunkers, you're going to be able to fire off a ton of very aggressive spells. Let's take a look at the characters that you can take to lead your Warriors of Chaos force. The first character is a Chaos Lord, and if you want a badass, melee, frontline soldier, then there is nothing better than a Chaos Lord. Incredibly survivable at toughness 5 with full plate and Chaos Armor 5+, meaning it's got a 4-up armor save and a 5-up ward save straight away. It's got 4 wounds and weapon skill 7, so even in close combat, units are going to struggle to hit it. Obviously, it has the Gaze of the Gods special rule, so it can consult the table and take a boon, and has Rallying Cry, so it lets fleeing units have another attempt at rallying. But this is all just stock. We haven't, as of yet, paid for any upgrades, and we can absolutely trick out this bad boy. First, we have a variety of weapon options, but also, of course, we can give them a ton of different marks. At high toughness 5, do we want to put them in with a big block of warriors and make them fight on the front line? We can give them up to 50 points of Gifts of Chaos, which are the Warriors of Chaos special artifacts, and 100 points of magic items. I think I should have mentioned that you can also give them a shield, so they're going to have a 3-up armor save if you want. And lastly, you can mount them on a variety of different mounts. You can put them on a Chaos Steed, a Demonic Mount, a Chaos Chariot, a Gore Beast Chariot, a Manticore, or a Chaos Dragon. The first thing I did was see what happened if I put a Chaos Lord on a Chaos Dragon, and you make an absolute behemoth with 10 wounds, really high toughness. Add all the magical artifacts that you can add, and you can make one of the most incredible melee monsters you've ever seen. Of course, this is expensive, and a Chaos Lord just in the front line of a very solid combat block may also be the right way to go. Chaos Lord on a horse as well, stick him in with a bunch of Chaos Knights, and again, you've got a very solid character. Probably should talk about the efficiencies as well. With the efficiencies of also having Chaos Armor and an innate built-in 5-up ward save, it means all the points that you're spending either on items or Chaos upgrades are really just adding to their survivability. This is all round a great unit, and this represents the absolute pinnacle of destruction in the old world. You can either have the Chaos Lord or you can have a Demon Prince. So let's look at the Demon Prince now. Toughness 5 with 4 wounds. They come as stock with light armor, which you can upgrade to heavy armor. But they come with Chaos Armor 4+, which means they have a 4-up ward save and they have regeneration 5-up. So that's going to put your 4-wound monstrous infantry character in a pretty survivable place all round. You can make your Demon Prince up to a level 4 wizard, and they gain access to battle magic, demonology, and dark magic. Of course, as well, you can give them one of the 4 different marks and a ton of magic items. They cause fear, they're immune to psychology, they are unbreakable and unstable, kind of feels like me, and they have the warp spawn special rule. You can also upgrade this unit to fly. I think it's good that they limited how many Demon Princes you can get, because these things are wicked. The sheer customization of a Demon Prince means you really get the opportunity to choose how you want to build this character in your army. This is probably the story of the Warriors of Chaos roster in of itself. So many different upgrades and so many different ways to play. While not necessarily an auto-include, a Demon Prince is a massive point sink if you're looking to build an army fairly fast. Being on a solo base and access to fly, I think a Demon Prince is going to be absolutely brilliant for flank charging and rear charges. And with 5 attacks at weapon skill 7 and strength 6, it's going to rip through units and add a ton of combat resolution to combats. The other characters, like the Exalted Champion and the Inspiring Champion, are also great characters with wicked Warriors of Chaos stat lines. Not quite as heavily armored as a Lord that has a full plate armor, and these guys just have heavy armor. They still gain access to being able to have shields. They're toughness 4, not toughness 5, but they still have Chaos armor, so they have an inbuilt 5-up ward save. Add to that the marks you can give them. You can mount them on several different mounts. One of these guys is going to be your BSB, and you can take a ton of magic items. Unlike some of the other BSBs or characters that fit in this slot for other armies, these guys are absolutely fine going in frontline melee units. This isn't a battle standard bearer you're going to have to protect. This is a battle standard bearer that's going to be YOLOing straight into the army, and with that stat line, it's fairly safe. Of course, the Demon Prince can be a wizard, but the real wizards in this army are the Chaos Sorcerer Lord and the Exalted Sorcerer. The Sorcerer Lord has a stat line that would make other melee frontline characters weep. Toughness 4 with 3 wounds on the Sorcerer Lord. They have uniquely got heavy armor. They also have Chaos armor, so they have an inbuilt 5-up ward save, which makes for an already tanky wizard in the front lines. Obviously, the Sorcerer Lord starts out level 3 and can be upgraded to a level 4 caster. And we already know if we give them the Mark of Tzeentch and we put them inside of a unit, they're going to be getting +1 to cast as well, meaning they're going to be rolling 2d6 and adding +5 to that roll, which is great. They have access to battle magic, demonology, and dark magic, as well as obviously the spell attached to the Mark of Chaos that you give them. You can upgrade them to any of the Marks of Chaos except Khorne, Khorne, because Khorne hates wizards. And all three of those spell laws are incredibly good, either because they have great ranged attacks or they have really good economies of scale for what is already a great stat line army. Again, I could probably spend about an hour talking about the spells and what spells to take and what spell law to take and what combos to build into this army, but this is going to be something that really pushes the Warriors of Chaos into an amazing place. The easiest combo is Battle Magic, and if you get the spell Oaken Shield, then the unit that the caster is a part of can get a 5-up ward save. Of course, you can upgrade this unit with a ton of magic items, and you can take the level 2 version of this caster, but there's going to be some great combos here. And again, in the comments, I'd love to know what your combo is for your magic spells, magic items, and how you're going to build this into a Warriors of Chaos army. You can also mount a Sorcerer Lord on a bunch of different mounts. You can have a Chaos Steed, a Demonic Mount, Chaos Chariot, a Manticore, and a Chaos Dragon. You may want to mount a Chaos Sorcerer Lord on a Chaos Steed, just so you can put them inside of a Chaos Knight brick to buff that unit up. Or you may want to put them on a Chaos Manticore, so they're much more mobile and they're able to threaten the front lines and apply a bunch of different damage. To recap, in the Warriors of Chaos roster, you've got some amazing characters, but they are going to cost you points. But thankfully, they have got some very high survivability, and so your opponent is going to really struggle to necessarily get the points off of those characters. Let's go and look at the core units that you can take in a Warriors of Chaos force. The first unit we're going to look at are Chaos Warriors, an iconic unit in the Warriors of Chaos roster. Warriors of Chaos have got an amazing stat line. Strength and toughness 4 with a wound apiece, but they are equipped with heavy armor and can upgrade to having shields. They also have ensorcelled weapons, which means they naturally have AP and magical attacks. You can upgrade this unit to having a full command, your champion can have 25 points of magic items, and you can have a banner up to 50 points. So as stock, they're a great anvil unit. A 4-up armor save thanks to heavy armor and the shield, with AP 1 on their melee attacks is already a great start, but we can really upgrade this unit. We can give them a mark, and if we wanted to make them an anvil unit, then we would give them the mark of Nurgle. We can make them the bunker for an amazing caster and make them the mark of Tzeentch. Then if we wanted to start making them a much scarier unit, we could give them an additional hand weapon and give them the mark of Khorne, giving them +2 attacks, 1 from Frenzy and 1 from the additional hand weapon. The unit is slow, it only moves 4 inches, but if we wanted to, we could give them the mark of Slaanesh and some great weapons, meaning that if we did get any charges off, then we'd be adding +4 to our initiative in combat, even with a great weapon. Chaos Warriors are going to be a really tough unit to shift off the battlefield, and they're going to be a great anvil for your army so that all of your hammers, of which you have loads, can charge in and smash the enemy units up. At the other end of the scale, we have Chaos Marauders. This is a light melee infantry unit. Toughness 3, 1 wound apiece, and you have to pay to upgrade them to have light armor and pay to upgrade them to have shields. They can be equipped to have hand weapons, great weapons, or flails. Obviously, you can have a full command, and they have both shield wall, which means the first time that they are going to fall back in good order, instead they can give ground, and warband, which is going to add +1 to their leadership for every rank bonus that they have, up to a maximum of 10. This is going to be pretty valuable as they have a pretty low leadership of 6. One unit of Chaos Marauders, though, can be upgraded to have the Skirmishers special rule, and one unit can be upgraded to have open orders. You can also spend points to upgrade this unit to have different marks. For the Warriors of Chaos roster, this is a fragile unit, but that doesn't mean that it has to be. It's very cheap, so you can make a unit that's very wound dense, and it's not bad in combat. Their weapon skill 4, their initiative 3. You can give them great weapons, for goodness sake, which is kind of cool. Give them the Mark of Khorne, and then they've got Frenzy. And then your opponent has to deal with a gibbering horde of lunatics swinging giant axes. You can have multiple small units of these to help with combat resolution by charging in the flanks, or you could change them into skirmishing units and help slow down your opponent's units by creating screens. It's going to be very attractive in, say, the Warriors of Chaos roster to build buff elite units. But sometimes you got to throw just a bunch of half-naked dudes at the enemy and line them up to get chopped down. The next core unit gets a little weird. These are the Forsaken, a heavy infantry unit and, you guessed it, a big frontline melee unit. Strength and toughness 4 and weapon skill 4. They're equipped with heavy armor and they have chaos armor 5+, meaning they have a 5-up ward save. They have hand weapons which are ensorcelled, so they are going to do magical attacks and have AP 1. You can get a lot of attacks out of this unit. D3 attacks on their profile, and they have the special rule Furious Charge, meaning they get +1 attack when they charge. Speaking of charging, this unit is impetuous, so 50% of the time it is going to charge into combat without you being able to control it. However, the unit is immune to psychology, so you don't have to worry about fear or terror tests, which makes sense when gibbering neighboring monsters run at the enemy. And the unit is stubborn, so it's all going to be able to test against its leadership, and it's got a good leadership 8. You're not going to be able to add any characters into the unit because it has the loner special rule. And unlike other units in the Warriors of Chaos roster, when you give it different marks, you get different effects. If you give them the mark of Khorne, the unit has hatred against all enemies. So rerolling all to hits is very good, especially with a lot of attacks. If you give it the mark of Nurgle, the unit will cause fear. If you give the unit the mark of Sinesh, the unit will have the Swift Stride special rule, which, seeing as this unit is going to be charging around all the time, being able to make it so that it does succeed in those charges does make some sense. And if the unit has the mark of Tzeentch, the unit has magic resistance -3. This will make this unit almost impervious to spells and debuffs, which is really nice. And this is not the end of the upgrades that the unit has, because it has a special rule called Rampant Mutations. At the beginning of combat, this unit rolls a dice to see which rampant mutation it has. On a 1 to 2, the unit has poison, and based on how many attacks this unit's going to be able to generate, that is awesome, especially if you then re-roll all those hits. If you roll a 3 to 4, the unit has AP of 2, and seeing as it already has AP of 1, I don't think that's much of an upgrade, but it is good. AP2 is very strong, and again, on a large volume of attacks, very good. On a 5 to 6, the unit gains Killing Blow, which means it's going to auto-slay infantry on 6s. The unit has the open order formation, and so combat resolution might be a bit difficult. However, I'm not sure that's true. You're going to get so many attacks from the front rank of this unit. Yes, they're initiative 3, so they're probably going to strike second, but they have a 5-up armor, 5-up ward save, so I think you're going to be okay. And I don't think I want to like these. I don't know why, but I think that they're very, very good. Like, in the right situation, a unit of Forsaken is going to be doing 20 attacks, rerolling to hit, and any 6s to hit are going to be poisoned. That sounds very good for combat resolution. The next unit we're going to look at for core are Chaos Knights. Pretty much exactly the same stat line as our Chaos Warriors, with weapon skill 5, strength and toughness 4. They have heavy armor and shields, but being mounted, they're on a barded warhorse, meaning you have the 3-up armor save. As standard, they obviously come with hand weapons, but you can upgrade them to lances, upgrade them to have a full command, and they can obviously take a magic standard up to 50 points, and even the champion can have a 25 points worth of magic items. They also have the special rule First Stride, which means they're going to be able to disrupt an enemy unit the first time they charge, which means that the unit won't be able to get a rank bonus. And they have Swift Stride, so they're going to be incredibly effective at completing charges. Upgrade them to have, obviously, any of the marks of chaos. You've got an incredible mounted core unit in this army. Put a Chaos Lord in it or a Sorcerer Lord in it to buff the unit up, and then you have a delivery system for even more combat resolution. Really fast, really survivable, and loads of upgrades. Chaos Knights are a great unit. Marauder Horsemen are perfect for a Warriors of Chaos army because they are a light cavalry unit that you can use to block up charges and then eventually countercharge. Strength and toughness 3 with a wound apiece. They have light armor and can be upgraded to have shields. They don't have chaos armor or ensorcelled weapons. You can upgrade them, obviously, to have any of the marks of chaos and give them a full command. As base, they come with hand weapons, but you can upgrade them to have cavalry spears, throwing spears, or flails. Fire and Flee letting them shoot and then run away, and Swift Stride giving them the opportunity for some long bomb charges. And lastly, and oddly, being able to be a warband as well. In my opinion, this unit is going to be used to screen your army and potentially war machine hunt at the back of the board. Most of your other units are going to be large points investments, so it's nice to be able to get a unit that's cheap, nimble, and is going to be able to create some space for you on the tabletop. Talking about chaff units, our last unit are Chaos Warhounds. This is a very cheap melee unit that has no armor save unless you upgrade them to have Armored Hide. You can also upgrade them to have poison attacks and also Vanguard. Pretty fast though at movement 7 and Swift Stride, and can move through cover, so they can be able to move around the board much more nimbly than most of the force. And that Vanguard special rule is going to come in particularly handy, especially if you're creating some zonal control at the start of the game by pushing out past your main combat blocks. If you want to, you can take a Chaos Warhound Handler as well. This is important because you can upgrade the unit to have a better leadership, which I think they might need, but it is going to slow the unit down. And in my opinion, Terror and Fear could be a big factor in this game. And so these war beasts might want that higher leadership so they can go and do their job, which is probably just standing in front of the enemy and getting mown down. However, I do love the idea of giving them poison attacks, and as an early combat, throwing them into some of the tougher units that you may face to potentially chip a couple of wounds off in combat. Now let's start looking at the units that you can take in the special slot for this army. The first 2 units are upgraded versions of units you can take from core, Chosen Chaos Knights and Chosen Chaos Warriors. I think there's a really good argument for taking cheap units out of core to fulfill the role of screening in the army army and then committing all of your points into chosen versions of Chaos Warriors or Chaos Knights. Chaos Warriors are 13 points each, but chosen warriors are 17. And you can just commit so many more points per Chaos Warrior and make them so much more survivable. You can upgrade them to have full plate armor and in addition to a shield, meaning you get this unit to a 3-up armor save. They come equipped with Chaos Armor 6+, which means they have an innate 6-up ward save, and they're stubborn, and so you're not going to have to worry about fleeing earlier in the game. And while the rest of the stats are the same, toughness 4, strength 4, and weapon skill 5, they gain additional attack, 2 attacks per model. And very much like we talked about with Chaos Warriors, you're going to be able to upgrade these, and being able to add Frenzy from the Mark of Khorne and an additional hand weapon means you can do a ton of attacks from a chosen Chaos Warrior unit. Of course, like we said, being able to upgrade them to have full plate armor and shields, and again, the Mark of Nurgle means you're going to have a 3-up armor save if you wanted to, commit to battle magic, have a 5-up ward save, and this is just the anvil of your dreams. Full command on this unit as well, obviously, and you can have a magic standard up to 100 points. Your champion can take a 25-point magic item as well, which is going to commit to either more defense or even more combat resolution. Or just equip the unit with great weapons as well. Mark of Khorne, 3 attacks each. That's going to be amazing. Loads of attacks, huge strength value. You can upgrade them to have the drilled special rule, which means you're going to be able to move after you do a redress. And they're just pricey. They're just elite warriors of chaos, but they are probably far more points efficient because of the additional attack. Doubling the output of a unit is obviously brilliant. In the same vein, chosen Chaos Knights are just a much better version of Chaos Knights. Heavy armor and shields as base on a toughness 4 chassis. You can upgrade them to have full plate armor, which in conjunction with their barded warhorse means you are going to get a 2-up save frontline cavalry unit. They have the countercharge special rule, which is a great argument for always equipping them with lances, because if they are able to countercharge, they will count as having charged, as well as all the times you're going to charge with this unit. And talking of first charge, they have that as a special rule, meaning they can disrupt enemy units and they can't claim a rank bonus. And those charges are going to be more successful because they have Swift Stride. Once locked into combat, as well as producing a lot of combat resolution because of the 2 attacks each that they have, they're going to be stubborn, so even if they are beaten in combat res, they're going to stick around for a lot longer. And then the usual story, you can give them a full command, you can give them the drilled special rule, a magic standard up to 100 points, and also the champ can have 25 points of magic items. With Chaos Armor of 6+, that means they've even got a cheeky ward save to add into their survivability. Chaos Marks are going to just compound this, and you're going to be able to put characters into this unit like Sorcerer Lords or Chaos Lords, and you have got an absolute bus of death. I think the first thing I would probably do with a list is I would start with my Chaos Knight bus, and then I would start adding units and characters and items to it. Then I would regret just how many points I've sunk into one single unit and start to think about building a proper list. But this is such an exciting unit. This is going to look incredible. The models are easily accessible already, and these are just going to be devastating. Absolutely devastating. Next special unit we're going to look at are Chaos Chariots. The Chaos Chariot is a heavy chariot, which means its impact hits are going to be at AP 2. This is important because it has D6 plus 1 impact hits. Impact hits are done at the strength of the unit, so they're going to be strength 5. And first charge is a special rule, which is going to disrupt the enemy on the first charge it does. Therefore, it can't claim a rank bonus, plus adding a ton of combat resolution. You're going to be using this chariot to try to do flank charges, do combo charges with another unit for a massive amount of initial combat resolution. And then this thing is going to stick around. Its toughness 5 comes with a 3-up base armor save. There are 2 charioteers armed with halberds and of course the 2 horses for an additional bunch of attacks. And you can upgrade a chariot to have any of the marks of chaos. Feels like Sinesh might be the right choice. Chaos Chariot is going to be something you use to supplement other charges in this melee-focused army, but a ton of different chariot charges are going to be a real problem for the enemy. However, if the enemy charge you, then these chariots are going to be close to useless. A little note on chariots as well, if you use them as a character mount. It gives the character 360-degree field of vision for both missile weapons and, most importantly, for the Warriors of Chaos, for spells. So this might be a very effective way to mount either your big wizard or even just a support caster that's going to help along with your combat blocks. If you're hungry for a slightly different type of unit in your Warriors of Chaos army, then can I interest you in some Chaos Ogres? Unlike the units we've talked about so far, the survivability from a Chaos Ogre unit comes in its wound density. They have 3 wounds each, equipped with heavy armor. But if you do have a front rank of monstrous infantry of 4, this puts 12 wounds on your front rank, meaning that even if your opponent strikes you first, and with their very low initiative, they probably will, it means you're going to have to do a lot of damage in order for you to not be able to strike them back. And you can strike back pretty aggressively. 3 attacks each per Ogre, they do have a slightly low weapon skill of weapon skill 3, but they're going to be hitting a strength 4 and they have armor bane. This means they're going to get an additional AP on any 6s to hit, which I'm not sure is going to be too impressive on their hand weapons, but if you do upgrade them to have great weapons, then of course that's going to really improve the AP of those big, strong attacks. They cause fear, which is actually quite nice in this army, because when we get around to talking about combos with magic items, there's ways to reduce leadership in this army quite effectively. They have impact hits as well. They can improve the AP of the impact hits based on the current rank bonus of the unit. This does mean, though, if you do want to get kind of the most out of the ogre unit, you're going to have to take a lot of ogres. What's good about this unit, though, is you can still give them mark, and this is where you can get some really spicy combos. With 3 attacks each, you can give them an additional hand weapon and the Mark of Khorne. You've got a frenzied unit of crazy lugs who are going to dish out 5 attacks. Of course, you can improve the initiative value of the unit by making them Mark of Sinesh, which is quite nice, and also means they're going to ignore panic, which is good because their leadership's not the best. You can give this unit a full command as well, but you cannot take a magic standard, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think small units of Chaos Ogres could work very similar to chariots. Flank charges and being able to add a ton of output that is going to help with combat resolution. Also, Ogres are just cool. Chaos Ogres maybe even better, and Pirate Ogres more so. If you're unhappy with a bunch of hungry Chaos Ogres, then may I interest you in some Chaos Trolls. The big thing to say about Chaos Trolls is they have the Stupidity special rule, which means you're not necessarily always going to have control of this unit, which I think immediately relegates it to, isn't this going to be fun to have, versus great. They have light armor on toughness 4, but they do have regeneration 5+ for the unit. However, they're also flammable, so flaming attacks are going to be particularly good into this unit. They cause fear, which, as I've said in the Warriors of Chaos, I think is very good. And as a special rule, they have armor bane 1. As standard, they have hand weapons, and you can upgrade them to have an additional hand weapon, but I think if you are going to take this unit, you probably would upgrade them to have a great weapon. They're only hitting at weapon skill 3, but have a mighty strength 5. So their 3 attacks base at strength 5 plus the great weapon with armor bane is going to absolutely wreck some fools. And once in close combat, they get to use the special attack Troll Vomit, which is an additional attack at strength 3 AP 2 that they get to do after all other things like stomps, etc. have happened. Chaos Trolls are a fascinating unit. I'm not really sure if I love them or really love them. The Stupidity special rule makes me want to protect them and push them into combat and do some amazing work, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to apply the same economies of scale to them that I can do to, let's say, a chosen Chaos Knight block. You can also take them in units of 1, which I'm not really sure what that would do right now. We're so early into the game, but I kind of like the idea of loads of solo trolls. Anyway, let me know what you think about these in particular. The next special unit is Chaos Spawn, and oh my god, are these awesome. Each Chaos Spawn has 3 wounds on their toughness 5 body with a heavy armor save. The entire idea of this unit is not really about surviving though, and it's all about the different effects and damage it's going to be able to do. We should first mention that it has random movement, so it's going to move 2d6. This means your opponent isn't going to be able to get charge reactions, but it also means that you are not going to be able to guarantee getting charges off. And for a unit that is only doing melee, it's very important to get this unit into combat if it can. It's also worth mentioning that the unit size is 1 to 4, so you can have solo Chaos Spawn running around causing a havoc if you want. They cause fear, which, as I've said already, is very good, and they're immune to psychology, so you don't have to worry about them taking any panic tests. They're also unbreakable, so they are going to pin units in combat until they are dead. Their attack profile, though, is D6, and this is where it gets really interesting. They have the low weapon skill of 3, but at strength 4 and armor bane 2, they are going to be able to get through some strong attacks with good armor penetration. However, being able to upgrade this unit with different marks is going to grant this unit different boons, and this is where the unit becomes incredibly fun to use. If the unit is a spawn of Khorne, then it gets the Killing Blow special rule. This means it's going to auto-slay some infantry, and this is going to be a real problem for characters nestled into the front lines of enemy units. Some Spawn of Nurgle have the Poisoned Attack special rule, which again is particularly good. Big unit of 4, 4d6 attacks, all with poison being thrown at a monster is a real issue. A Spawn of Sinesh has the Strike First special rule, which is quite fun, and the Spawn of Tzeentch has the Flaming Attacks and Magical Attack special rule. Within Sorcerer weapons, the Warriors of Chaos roster isn't particularly in need of more magical attacks, and both the Killing Blow upgrade or the Poison Attacks upgrade are awesome. Because the random movement is going to let you down probably more than it's going to help you out, I can see this being a unit that you'll use at clubs or in friendly games with your friends. But for that, it's almost perfect. It's storytelling in itself. Having a unit of 4 gibbering monsters, killing, blowing all sorts of infantry is really cool. Or just bringing down a monster with all those poison attacks. The last special unit we're going to look at is a Chimera. The Chimera I would probably describe as as a light monster. It has 4 wounds at toughness 5 with heavy armor, and you can upgrade it to have regeneration. However, you are going to get a lot of combat resolution out of a Chimera. With its 6 attacks at strength 6, which has armor bane 2, that's already a good start for how much output this Chimera is going to be able to do. If you upgrade it to have a Fiend Tail, it's going to be able to get D3 extra attacks, and you can upgrade the whole Chimera to do poisoned attacks. And then, if you want to add on to the amount of combat resolution or just generally damage you can do, you can upgrade to have a flaming breath weapon. And as previously mentioned, you're going to be able to deliver this monster pretty well. Fly 10, Swift Stride is going to be very fast. It also causes terror, which is going to make units flee, which I think it's going to be very, very good at. However, as I've said, I'm not really sure on its survivability. Maybe just keep it as cheap as you can get it and use it to harass the flanks and go War Machine hunting at the back, because those War Machines will be hunting this Chimera. Now let's look at the rare choices. You can take a Chaos Giant and a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth in the rare slot for this army, but I'm not going to cover that. I'm going to cover those inside the Beast of Chaos review. Also, I kind of think if you're playing Chaos Warriors, you should probably play with the Chaos Warriors, otherwise just play Beastmen. Anyway, something you can take for every 1,000 points in your army is a Hell Cannon, and we should talk about this. Hell Cannon is going to be a pivotal part of a Warriors Chaos army because it's going to do what I call keeping an enemy army honest. A gunline army or an army that doesn't want to engage with you is going to be happy to keep your slower units at range. However, if there is a War Machine that is just dumping shots on them like a Hell Cannon, they might have to think about leaving the forest or leaving their gun line behind. And the Hell Cannon is a monster of a War Machine. Literally, it's a monster. Let's talk about the ranged damage of it first, and then we'll talk about all the other things that make up this very complicated unit. It's basically a stone thrower or a mortar. It uses a small blast template, which is strength 10 in the middle and strength 5 all around. It has the move or shoot restriction, so if you move it, you won't be able to shoot it, but it causes multiple wounds D3, which is bananas. This is a horrible weapon profile that's going to cause some real panic in your opponent's army. Literally, it has this special rule. If you take any wounds from a Hell Cannon's missile weapon, then the unit must take a panic test as if it suffered heavy casualties. This is also going to be an incredibly tough piece of artillery for small skirmishing units or kind of ambushing units to deal with. Probably in your army list, you're going to think about different types of units you're going to use to try to maybe get at War Machines at the back of the board. Most of those units will not be able to fight off a Hell Cannon. It's toughness 6 with 5 wounds. It has a 4-up armor save and a 6+ regeneration. It causes terror, and if it does get into combat, it's unbreakable. It also causes D6 impact hits. And I know you're asking yourself, why the hell does a cannon have impact hits? It has a special rule, Caged Fury. During the start of turn subphase, this unit must make a leadership test, and if it fails, it has to consult the Hell Cannon misfire table. On a roll of a 1, the Hell Cannon is free at last. The demon breaks loose, and every unit, friend or foe, within 3d6 inches suffers d6 strength 5 hits with an AP of 1. Once these hits are resolved, the Hell Cannon is removed from play. That is a cataclysmic AoE damage profile. On a roll of a 2 to 4, you get the result Chomp, and for this result, you remove one of the Hell Cannon's handlers because it's been eaten. And a result of 5 to 6, you get the result Blood. The Hell Cannon immediately breaks free and charges 3d6 inches as if it were subject to random movement special rule. This means if it does make contact with an enemy unit, it will count as having charged. And in combat, it's got 5 attacks, strength 5 and weapon skill 4. This is a great storytelling piece, which is also an incredibly effective War Machine in a very solid army. As a rare choice, the Gore Beast Chariot is very similar to the Chaos Chariot, but for the weaknesses the Chaos Chariot has, the Gore Beast makes up for it. Toughness 5, 4 wounds, and a 3-up armor save. This means it's going to be fairly survivable, but outside of the impact hits that it obviously has, similar to the normal Chariot, the Gore Beast brings in a massive 3 attacks at strength 5. It's also got Killing Blow and Armor Bane. And so like the normal Chariot, charging in conjunction with other units is going to be pretty useful, but this is a unit that also is going to be good in ongoing combat. And the points upgrade versus a normal Chariot makes it a very competitive choice. Overall, the Warriors of Chaos roster is really interesting, especially because of all the ways you can upgrade either the characters or the units. Ultimately though, outside of the Hell Cannon, this is a melee-centric army, which is going to be incredibly tough to deal with. It's going to be very good for new people to collect, because you're not going to have to build lots of models, because you can make some really points-dense units. That might be where the army suffers though, because the enemy might be able to use small, cheap units to block your very expensive but incredibly deadly larger blocks. This is an army I'm personally very excited about, so I'm interested to know what you all think. Also, I really hope you like this video, and this is just the first video we're going to be doing on the Warriors of Chaos. Of course, we've got to cover magic items and do a deep dive on tactics and how to build certain units in this army. And hopefully you'll join us for this adventure on the Squarebase show. I want to thank everyone for all the lovely comments on the last few videos we've done and all the support. It's been great. And I would love you to share, like, and let people know about these videos if you haven't done already. And I want to thank all the people on the Squarebase Patreon for helping us create this content. It's incredibly cool of you, and thanks very much. And lastly, just tell me what you think. I love reading your comments. I love seeing people excited about a faction and what you're most interested in doing with the Warriors of Chaos.